This is where I'm so interested because when Western music, when Western movies and thought started coming to Eastern Europe in the Cold War, I mean, after that, the Soviet Union, they've got about 10 years left before the might of the people just overwhelms that of the authority figures. But uh, uh, the Ayatollah, he's in power for 35 years, and then Khomeini before him for another 10. How was the Iranian, when you've got a population that is quite enlightened, when they're quite progressive, they don't believe exactly what their leaders are telling them to believe, and you've got quite a large population in Iran, what is the level of suppression of those people that the government can stay in charge of so many people that hate them?
That's a really good question. So let me share with you my perspective on that. So one, and things have changed, but here's the thing: 20 years ago, if you talk to the ordinary Iranians, and I remember having this conversation um, in Iran with people in Iran, and if you ask them, well, to what extent are you willing to go on a street and risk your life and risk everything you have for a regime change and protest this regime? The answer was, well, what did we get out of 1979 revolution? What are we going to get out of this one? If there is a there is a revolution, there's another revolution. So there was a sense of discouragement or a sense of um, not interest in risking um, their lives in the little thing that they've had in life for another regime change. And um, and there's another important factor here that some of us forget about this regime. They came to power out of a revolution. The supreme leader, most of the folks in the Iranian regime, the senior officials from the RGC to political institutions of this regime, they are the revolutionaries in 60s and 70s. These are folks who were detained for years during the previous government, pre 1979 Pahlavi era. There were fugitives, there were thugs, there were revolutionaries. They know, they're experts when it comes to revolutions. So for the past 47 years, they did a really good job taking security steps to prevent a revolution, to make sure that if there is a movement being taking shape, they can stop it, they can avoid it. One um, experience that I have, we lived as a child, in my um, early years of my life until elementary school. I lived only a few blocks. We lived in a house only a few blocks from the Evin prison. It's the most notorious prison, probably one of the most notorious prisons in Middle East, and most notorious prison in Iran. We lived only a few blocks from the prison, and first of all, I remember hearing really loud sounds very early in the early morning, and my dad later on told me that those were actually the sound of fire squads, and they were executing people. Um, but but what happened is they moved us all out. They confiscated those houses, and they moved. Um, they confiscated those houses in that neighborhood, and then they started moving in families and people who were aligned with the regime. Uh, and now looking back, I understand what they were doing. They were moving people who were aligned with the regime to the most strategic locations in the country. That was one of the many, many steps that they were taking to make sure that they're avoiding a situation where these strategic locations could be overtaken by protest. Look at their TV channel. In 1979, one thing that really changed things for Pahlavi government and for the revolutionaries to win over the popular support was really when they took over the TV, the state TV, and they started broadcasting um, their version of the events. And they told people, "Hey, Shah is gone. Come to the street. We've taken over." And that really encouraged people to finish up with that revolution and turn it into the end of Pahlavi era. They've invested the past 47 years in propaganda and how they can control the flow of information. Um, and I talked to people inside the country. As of today, I heard that they are more focused on blocking the flow of information to the country. They're jamming satellite. They have cut out the internet. They have moved their own websites to the internet. So you and I, we're going to have a hard time find out what they are messaging to their domestic population. And at the same time, we can't really get in touch with them. So um, it's a flow of information that really care about. So my point here is they have been they created a very uh, resilience kind of government towards a revolution or a movement that can really pose a serious threat to the existence.